On the gritty streets of St. Louis, the line between protector and target blurs faster than most can imagine. The stories of officers killed in the line of duty paint a portrait of sacrifice, chaos, and heartbreak. A series of moments that changed the city forever. This is the untold story of St. Louis officers who lost their lives serving a city that never stops moving. For every badge retired, there's a ripple, a family torn apart, a department shaken, and a community left grappling with violence that doesn't discriminate. These are not just names on a memorial, these are real people, fathers, sons, husbands, and friends whose lives ended in flashes of violence, split-second decisions, and the unpredictable pulse of the streets. Their stories cross decades and neighborhoods, each one marked by dates that families will never forget. Through the chaos, one thing remains, the ultimate sacrifice paid by those who swore an oath to protect. October 18, 1982, police officer Claude C Smith was just 28 years old, already a 7-year veteran and a young father to a 6-month-old son. That day, even off duty, he couldn't turn down a call for help. He joined a sheriff's deputy at the Vaughn Housing Project, 1101 North 18th Street, searching for a wanted man. The tension in the air was thick, a neighborhood on edge after rumors of a child molester spread like wildfire. In a tragic twist, an unrelated resident mistook Smith for the very suspect haunting the community's fears. One pull of the trigger and Smith's life was cut short. For his family, the pain never faded. For the city, it was a brutal lesson in how quickly confusion and fear can ignite into irreversible loss. August 13, 1986, Sergeant William N Campbell, age 41, was finishing his shift at the 6th District Police Station on Ruskin Avenue. Without warning, a man got into Campbell's police car, grabbed the shotgun stowed inside, and started calling out on a radio. Campbell rushed to intervene, but the man fired, hitting him in the chest. Fellow officers returned fire, killing the assailant. In an instant, Campbell's 12 years of service ended. He left behind his wife and daughter, and the entire precinct was left reeling, forced to confront just how thin the line is between routine and tragedy. On February 19, 1987, Sergeant Jeffrey Kowalsski was chasing a juvenile robbery suspect in the 5000 block of Vernon Avenue. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out. Kowalsski took a bullet to the abdomen, an injury that would haunt him for the next 21 years. Despite numerous surgeries, the wound never truly healed. In the spring of 2008, cancer took root in the damaged organ. By late that year, Sergeant Kowalsski succumbed to complications from the decades-old shooting. His legacy etched into the department as both a survivor and a symbol of what officers endure long after the sirens fade. July 29, 1991, police officer Michael A. McNe, a U.S. Navy veteran of the Vietnam War, had already served 16 years with the department. On this day, his patrol car was intentionally broadsided at the intersection of 7th and Russell Boulevards during a high-speed pursuit. The suspect's vehicle slammed into McNe's at over 100 miles per hour, igniting both cars in flames. Fellow officers rushed in, dragging McNe and the suspect from the wreck. McNe would not survive, but the suspect recovered and was later convicted of first-degree murder. McNe's death sent shockwaves through his family, a wife and 2 children left to navigate a world forever altered by violence. February 3rd, 1997, Detective Gregory J. Ersen, a respected 8-year veteran assigned to the 3rd District Bureau, was working undercover on a stroll, one of the city's prostitution corridors. That night, after making 6 arrests, he pushed forward with the operation. In a vacant parking lot at Whittier Street in Westminster Place, Ersen was ambushed, robbed, shot, and left slumped over the steering wheel of his car. His badge, wallet, and gun were all taken. 2 suspects were convicted of capital murder. One would be killed in prison, the other sentenced to life. At home, Ersen's wife and 2 children mourned a man whose courage never wavered, even when the danger was at its highest. May 3rd, 1994, Rogers, just 23 years old and only 14 months into his assignment with the 8th District, found himself off duty but face to face with danger. Outside a laundromat at Des Pearls Avenue and Washington Boulevard, a man pulled a gun to rob him. Rogers drew his service revolver and a deadly shootout erupted. Both men were struck. Rogers died of his wounds. The suspect was later caught, convicted, and paroled in June 2010. Rogers' grandmother became the sole keeper of his memory. A young life and promising career stolen in an instant. June 22, 1998, police officer Todd Stanton Merryweather, a U.S. Navy veteran and former Missouri State Highway Patrol trooper, went outside his home in the 4600 block of Court Avenue to put an anti-theft device on his car. A parolee confronted him, gun drawn. Shots were exchanged and both men fell fatally wounded. Merryweather's death struck the department hard, a reminder that violence can find you even on your own doorstep. His 4 years of service ended with his family, colleagues, and community reeling from the loss. August 8, 2000, police officer Robert J. Stanza, just 29 years old, was part of an operation to arrest a suspect wanted for shooting another officer. At the intersection of Marcus Avenue and St. Louis Avenue, Stanza and his partner placed the handcuffed suspect in their cruiser, but the man had a hidden handgun and opened fire from the back seat. Stanza, though wearing a bulletproof vest, was shot through a gap in the armor. His partner returned fire, wounding the suspect, who later pled guilty and was sentenced to life. Stanza's wife, pregnant with twins, was left to raise their children without him. September 13, 2002, police officer Michael Jansen Barwick was pursuing a stolen vehicle with his partner. At 2:20 a.m., a minivan collided with Barwick's patrol car at 25th Street and St. Louis Avenue, sending the cruiser airborne and bursting into flames. Officers pulled Barwick and his partner from the wreckage, but Barwick would not survive. The suspects were eventually caught and faced felony murder charges. The driver was sentenced to 12 years, the passenger to 18. In 2007, a stretch of Interstate 44 was renamed in Barwick's honor, a permanent tribute to a life ended far too soon. February 11, 2003, police officer James Williams Branson Jr. was involved in the pursuit of a carjacked vehicle when his cruiser collided with a sport utility vehicle at North Market Street and North Jefferson Avenue. Branson suffered a broken ankle and underwent surgery on February 14th. Sent home to recover, tragedy struck on March 9th when a pulmonary embolism from a blood clot took his life. He left behind a wife and 4 children, another family shattered by the hidden costs of the job. May 19, 2004, police officer Nicholas Kevin Sloan was working a narcotics operation with the Federal Weed and Seed Program near North Taylor Avenue and Enright Avenue. Observing a drug transaction in a liquor store parking lot, Sloan and his partner moved in. A violent struggle broke out and the suspect managed to seize Sloan's service weapon. Sloan was shot once in the chest just above his vest, and his partner was shot twice. Despite his injuries, Sloan's partner returned fire, killing the suspect. Sloan's father, a sergeant with the Vice/Narcotics Division, grieved with the entire department for a son lost at just 24. August 15, 2006. Police officer Norville Brown, aged 22 and barely a year into his service, was ambushed in an alley in the 1600 block of Simple Avenue. A 15-year-old suspect, intent on killing a police officer, shot Brown through the opening in his bullet-resistant vest. Brown managed to call for help. An undercover officer rushed him to the hospital, but he did not survive. The teenage shooter and an accomplice were quickly arrested. On October 9, 2009, the shooter was sentenced to life without parole. Brown's death left a city shaken and questioning how such hate could come so young. October 6, 2009, Officer Julius Moore, just 23 years old, was responding to assist in the pursuit of a burglary suspect when a tractor trailer slammed into his patrol car at South Broadway and Arsenal Street. For 9 days, Moore battled his injuries at St. Louis University Hospital before succumbing. He left behind a wife, 3 young children, parents, and a sister, his sacrifice rippling through a family deeply connected to the department. March 24, 2010, police officer David Aaron Haynes, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, was chasing a burglary suspect down South Kings Highway Boulevard. Suddenly, another car pulled out from Oleatha Avenue, crashing into Haynes' patrol vehicle. Haynes was rushed to the hospital but did not survive. The fleeing driver was caught and later confessed, sentenced to 20 years in prison. Haynes' family, wife, mother, and brother carried the burden of another promise cut short. April 25, 2011, police officer Daryl Anthony Hall was at a nightclub on South 4th Street when gunshots rang out in the early morning hours. Hall went outside, identified himself as police, and confronted at least one gunman. Shots were exchanged. Hall was struck 3 times and died at the hospital. One of the shooters was also killed, but a second escaped. Hall's mother and stepfather were left to mourn a man whose courage would not allow him to stand by while violence threatened others. August 29, 2020, police officer Tamaris Luenley Bohane was ambushed in the 3700 block of Hartford Street. Responding to a shooting call, Bohane was searching for a victim when gunfire erupted. Struck in the head, he was rushed to the hospital, but succumbed the following day. The gunman forced residents from their home and barricaded himself inside until he was finally captured. Bohanen's service spanned just 3.5 years, but he was named 2020 Officer of the Year for District 2. He left behind a wife, 3 children, a brother and 2 sisters, a family and department united in grief and pride. September 6, 2021, police officer David Lee was assisting at a crash scene on eastbound I-70, just east of the Adelaide Avenue exit, when tragedy struck. While setting out flares to warn oncoming traffic, a car spun out of control on the wet roadway, striking Lee and pinning him between vehicles before throwing him several feet. The 24-year-old driver in the country illegally and already on probation for domestic battery was charged with DWI, death of a law enforcement officer, and related crime. Lee's 18 years of service came to a sudden, violent end, leaving behind a wife and 2 children. From the first badge loss to the most recent, the stories of St. Louis' fallen officers reveal a city where duty, chaos, and tragedy are often intertwined. These are not just tales of loss, but of bravery, love, and sacrifice, a testament to the men and women who answered the call no matter the risk and paid the ultimate price for their city.